Welcome back, welcome back. After the news, as we promised you, we've got with us a young lady who has made her name in the United States. She left Trinidad and Tobago in 2013, I am told. Since then, she has moved on and has become very much involved in media work in Florida in particular. She'll give us a little bit of a history. She also did a documentary with our very own Atto Bolden. Her name is Terrisa Mark. She is from Princess Tongue, a long way in Trinidad and Tobago, depending on if you're coming from Port of Spain, obviously. But for Princess Tongue people, it's not a long way. And she's joined us. Terrisa, welcome.
Thank you. Nice
Terrisa,
to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. You left Trinidad and Tobago in 2013, and tell us what happened after that.
Okay, so originally in 2013, I received a track and field scholarship to Wiley College. And once I took that opportunity, my major was mass communications. And from mass communications, I wanted to further my studies. So I did my master's degree in journalism at the University of Miami. And from there, I have been working particularly in sports media. So now I'm the sports information and assistant sports information director at Florida Gulf Coast University, which is in Fort Myers, Florida.
How has that been? How has that transition been from being a student to learning, now to actually living your dream?
Yes. So at first, obviously, it was challenging making that transition, but I think I've been able to adapt well because while doing track and field, you have to be not just all-rounded, but be able to go about your day, set a strict schedule for yourself and sticking with it. So I just transitioned from being a track and field athlete, always busy, making sure I'm doing my academics and my sports. So now when it comes to working, I think I'm handling it well.
And in terms of all your life, what drove you towards mass communications?
Well, I always had a passion for speaking and writing growing up. My dad always had me very involved in, presenting to people, or even growing up in church. Speaking has never been something I was nervous about. But my dad always made sure that we were heavily involved in sports. I always loved sports. And once my brother and I started running, I was obsessed.
All right, so you were in track and field. What distance? 100, 200, 400? What you did?
Okay, so formerly I was 100, 200, and I started the 4x1. So I was a sprinter.
And how was the time as a track and field athlete while you were studying? How was that? How did that go?
Well, the best days of my life I could actually say was being an athlete or running track. To me was joy, because I grew up always racing my brother, racing people in Princess Tongue, and once I went to Cohen Hamilton Secondary, and from Cohen went to Pleasantville, but all I ever wanted to do was really to run in the Olympics. And once I realized, okay, I have a new passion now, I still wanted to follow up with that. So I always tell people, even though I'm not an athlete now, the love I have for sports is what drives me to be a journalist right now, to really be involved in sports. And my goal, I know I will still one day be in the Olympics. I may not be running, but I will be covering the athletes. And I was given an opportunity to go to the Pan American Games in 2019, and that made me realize that I do want to do it.
So tell us about that experience.
Yeah, so 2019, I was given an opportunity to cover the Pan American Games through Express as well as Kwame Lawrence, and that was my first international games to say I'm reporting on Trinidad and Tobago athletes, and it was amazing. I was able to write stories, and those stories went on Express online. But the point is, I was still able to interview the athletes, and I already had that connection because, of course, these were athletes that I trained with and competed with.
Tell us who they are.
For example, I practiced with Dream Richards and Marshall Cedeno in Quantum. So that was a track and field club that I grew up kind of after leaving Princess Tongue. I started training with Trevor James, which was Quantum. And so to see Dream Richards at the Pan American Games and to see Marshall Cedeno and to be able to interview them, that was a good connection. Well, firstly, they were surprised, one, to see me there, but then everyone was just happy to connect. So even though I was not there as an athlete with them, they were happy to still see, well, this was also, my nickname was Speedy back then. So they was
Speedy?
Yeah.
All right.
So they were happy to see me and see that I'm doing what I love. And I was extremely happy for the entire team, as well as, the late Dion Leno. It was really nice to see him as well.
How does it feel being an athlete and experiencing the life of an athlete and then turning on the other hat and becoming a journalist? Because sometimes journalists look on athletes critically, athletes look on journalists critically. How have you meshed those two?
Well, first, I understand, working in the media, a lot of people were always quick to be so harsh on athletes, especially, or track and field athletes from Trinidad. But being an athlete, I understand some of these athletes, the things that they go through, not just physically, but mentally. So sometimes when they don't don't do their best, we're so quick to be like, why you didn't run good? Or, how come we didn't make it to the finals? But I have that connection that I understand. Sometimes things happen, no excuses, but sometimes things happen. But so I can connect with them also. Sometimes I believe I know the questions to ask. Sometimes as media, we're so quick to just be so blunt. But now I understand that sometimes we have to try to put ourselves in the athlete's shoes.
How do you convince people of what you've just said? I understand what you've just said, obviously, and that how mainly the public demands from the media to find out why the athlete did not succeed or succeed. If he didn't succeed, they want to know why, because there's an opinion that the country, the government would have invested so much money in athletes, why are they not doing well? And then we compare ourselves, and you can give us some of that experience, we compare ourselves to Jamaica, meaning that if we see the Jamaicans doing well, we wonder, why is Trinidad and Tobago not doing well? How do you deal with that?
Well, what I would say, we have to look at all the factors that play, right? You may not know if an athlete is getting funded. From being in the US, I can say there are a number of athletes who are paying coaches right now who may not be receiving funding just because they may not be the top athletes, but they do not want to give up on their dreams. So that's what kind of made me realize I had to stop. I wasn't the best of the best, so of course I was not getting funded. And some people have to realize, well, if I have to pick up a job, when am I going to be, training and whatnot? And living in the US, as we know, anywhere internationally is going to be, costly. So all these factors have to play that. Sometimes we have athletes representing us for Olympics, but that does not mean that they are funded. That does not mean they are paying or even have the best coaches. So yes, they were able to qualify for the Olympics or qualify for the World Games, but they may do their best at the World Games. We just may not know. We may think, well, not making it to the finals is obviously not good enough, but to an athlete, they may run their personal best in the semifinals. So those are things we have to factor, that we sometimes just get behind an athlete at the Olympics. But if you know the entire athlete's story, then you would know, well, this person ran a personal best, they just didn't make it to the final. So as a country, I think we need to stick with our athletes before just Olympics or before a major games, like follow up on these athletes, see how they are doing throughout their season.
So let's put you on the spot here, Terrisa. So who is to blame? Is it the people or the media for asking the hard questions of the athletes?
No, so it's not the media's fault for asking a question, because as a good journalist, the people want to know, why didn't you not perform? I think it's the media's responsibility to tell the entire story. Of course, with television, you don't have the time for that, but you can always start off by, well, how was your season? Instead of, why didn't you not make the finals? And if we find out, well, the athlete themselves may tell us, well, I ran much faster 2 weeks ago, it's just today, mentally, I was not here. Don't just ask about the physical stuff, just did something happen before the race that we don't know about? If the stick or the baton, I should say, gets dropped, find out did anything, how was practice before? There are factors that goes into sometimes when an athlete doesn't do well. So the reporter, I believe, should ask a few more questions instead of just going straight into, why didn't you not perform your best today?
All right, so let's drift on. Atto Bolden, tell us about doing that video, getting that done. How did that happen?
So in 2019, I was graduating. I had to graduate from University of Miami, and I had to do my thesis. So it's just, you have to pass the project that you do. And me being in journalism,
you do your master's?
I was doing my master's, right? And I know I had to tell a story, and I was living in Miami. Atto Bolden was living in Florida, and I thought about it. I'm like, I wanted to do something that was not just any video on any person. I had the time, I had resources, and I just always believed in telling Atto Bolden's story, because I just felt like he did so much more than just run at the Olympics. Yes, he's a broadcaster, and he was also coaching at the time. So I just found it so important that here we have someone who I think story is not being told, or some people in Trinidad I don't think understand the depth of what it takes to be a broadcaster outside in the US, as well as being a coach, as well as being an Olympian. So I found that story to be important. And when the idea first came in my mind to interview Atto Bolden, I was like, he's probably not going to say yes. But then I thought to myself, what am I to lose? If he says yes, great. If he says no, nobody knows. I would just move on to what is next. Nobody knows. So that's what I kind of want to motivate.
All right, so let's say what he did. Go ahead.
So once he said yes.
How you found him?
Instagram.
All right.
So that's what I also want to tell social media.
You went to Instagram.
I went to Instagram.
You're an Instagram lady.
I DM'd Atto Bolden.
All right. Nothing wrong with that. Direct message.
Yes,
DM direct message. That for the guy. You see the guy who you met with that funny name?
Yes.
That's for him. Yeah, go ahead.
Direct message. So I sent the message explaining myself, explaining who I am, that I'm currently in grad school. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. I used to be a former athlete, to connect with him.
Yes.
So I didn't just come out as a stranger. I wanted to make sure he knows who I am and I'm serious about this. I asked to meet with him. So I didn't just go and start filming immediately. I met with him to get that personal connection, let him know that I'm serious. We set up times, and then I started writing my script of how I wanted the video to be, and the video entails...
So who did the video? You did everything yourself?
I filmed the video, and I wrote the script, yes.
So you did it with you cut, you did everything yourself?
Yes.
Very good.
And all that was to ensure that I was able to graduate my master's. So I was able to show...
So what did Atto tell you at first? Like, tell us.
No, he said yes from off the jump.
Okay.
Right? He said yes, and I wanted to touch on all pieces. So I spoke with his father.
Guy Bolden.
Yes, I spoke with his father in Santa Cruz.
Right.
I went to the home, and I was able to get that connection with people to see that his father still has all the medals, all the trophies, his spikes.
Yes, he has everything. Yeah.
Yes, he has everything. So I wanted to make that connection. I went to the Atto Bolden Stadium to also show, because the video was going to be shown in the US.
How long was the video?
13 minutes.
All right, good.
Yes, I wanted to also, so it's what I call a mini documentary. I wanted to show that there is a stadium in his name in Trinidad and Tobago. I wanted to show all the Olympic medals, the Olympic races. A lot of people may not know, the commentary of, I think that's what made Usain Bolt's race stand out so much to us. Just hearing Atto Bolden's name and doing the commentary to be knowing that Usain Bolt is from the Caribbean, and here we have Atto Bolden, who's also from the Caribbean, narrating the race as it took place. I think all those things was important to piece together and show that this is one person who is also doing this. So the documentary, to me, in my opinion, was a success. A lot of people from Trinidad really enjoyed it, felt like they learned something, and I was able to pass and graduate from University of Miami.
All right, so there you are, you passed, you moved on.
Yes.
You went to the Pan American Games, you did the interview with Atto Bolden. What else? I mean, I know you're sort of young lady that wants challenges, so what else? What's next?
Yeah, so from there, even though I was my main sports was really track and field, and always had a love for basketball, I was given the opportunity.
Why you love basketball?
Because my dad kind of watches a lot of basketball, and my brother. Yeah.
And what team did your dad support?
Chicago Bulls. So he's
that's an old age. Yeah, that's an old stage team.
But
that's the Bulls.
So then now.
Still, they're winning nothing.
Yeah, San Antonio Spurs is what we kind of grew up on.
They've been champions.
And
Tim
now,
Duncan,
yes, and now he's back in Miami Heat like me.
He's back in Miami Heat, yeah.
Yes.
And they're in the finals.
Yes.
Actually, they're in the finals on Thursday, right? Yes. But all right, so from that perspective, before we take our first break here, how challenges has it been for you as a young journalist in Florida? What has been the most challenging aspect so far for you?
Well, what I would say is adapting. So what I was going to tell you is the first job that I got from leaving University of Miami, I was somewhat of a freelancer for the Memphis Grizzlies. And that, in a sense, I was living in Memphis. And at the point in time, obviously, it made me a bit nervous, but I had someone, like a mentor at the newspaper. And I would go to the games, and I would be able to write a story. It wouldn't go immediately on the newspaper, but I had an editor, so I started to get practice. So from there, I got a job the first job as a sports information director in Clarksdale, Mississippi. So that was something that was new. I took the challenge, always, looking for the challenge. I took the challenge and moved to Clarksdale, and there I was able to cover 7 sports, including basketball. But it was a community college, which means it's on a smaller level. So from there, I made my way to Division I at Alabama A&M University, and then got to Florida Gulf Coast. So the hardest part is just knowing the amount of eyes that are on my work. So I started off at a community college, which would mean it's a smaller school or whatnot, but Florida Gulf Coast is Division I. So I think the hardest thing is always knowing that you have more eyes on you, so you have to be 10 times better. Your work has to be 10 times cleaner. I also do social media for the women's basketball team, which means there are thousands of people looking on to the social media. So the challenging thing is always knowing every day I have to push myself. I can never relax and be like, I could just do anything today. It's never going to be that. I always have to be, my best, because as I say, I am somewhat of an ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago and to the Caribbean, because I always want, if someone applies for the job that I have, they will say, well, we had somebody from the Caribbean and they was a hard worker, and I always try to tell people, you never know if you're the first Trinidadian or Trinbagonian someone is meeting. So we have to, show that we're willing to work hard. we may not know everything, but we're willing to learn.
It's a big,
yes.
From Mississippi to Florida, it's
Yes.
a massive difference, obviously.
Yes.
So you took on any challenge.
Yes, because I always wanted to go back to Florida because I went to school in Miami, and obviously that's more people, more eyes on your work. So I was looking for that challenge because Mississippi obviously is smaller. And the end result is to be a reporter on ESPN. So I always believe that, well, the more coverage I'm able to do and the more people I'm able to spread.
So you want to be at one of them basketball games,
yes.
interviewing during the break. Nothing wrong with that. We look forward to seeing you there. We're going to take a short break. We've got young Terrisa Mark with us, making a name in the United States. We take a short break. We'll be back. Welcome back, welcome back. This is WESN Content Capital, Face of Sports. We have young Terrisa Mark with us. She's a young, budding journalist, but she's gone past budding now because she's out there doing a lot of hard work. Terrisa, tell us, now that you're attached to Florida, you cover a number of sports. Give us a little idea.
Okay, so the sports that I'm covering is women's basketball, men's, what they call soccer. We know, it as football, yeah. Men and women's cross country, beach volleyball, men and women's tennis.
What does a typical day now for Terrisa Mark look like when you get up in the morning? Give us a little rundown of what a typical day looks like now out there.
Okay, so let's say basketball was in season. When you wake up, even though you get to the office, first thing, let's say there's a game later on tonight at 7 in the morning, you will have to make a graphic and put out on social media, or post on social media, I should say, that we're having a game at 7. So your audience, because remember, you have fans, you have people who are checking their social media looking for information. So I'd have to put that graphic out saying there is a game. From there, the day before, you may have put out a preview saying who we're going to play. So this is the writing aspect of the job. You have to put out a preview saying who we are playing against. Last time we met up, did we win, did we lose? Key players to watch. So from there, as the day goes on, you're prepping for the actual game, making sure media background is set up for interviews, any other pictures, just to get people to come in, because at the end of the day, remember, you're also trying to sell tickets, so you have to be active on social media and whatever writing pieces, just to tell people to come out to the game. Well, now let's say the game starts. Once the game starts, once again, I'm also doing social media, tweeting, making sure we let people know how much we're up by, how much we're winning by, who are key players in the game.
So during the game itself?
Yes, during the game itself. Who are the key players? The previous school, I also had to do commentary for basketball, so that was very fun, because the people in Mississippi was excited to know, well, who's this girl coming through on the radio with this accent?
Right,
you know,
good.
So that was fun. That was back in Mississippi, but here in Florida, so live tweeting during the game and myself making notes, because once the game is finished and the fans leave, you know, that's when the work really starts, because now I have to write my piece that would normally go to a newspaper the next morning, but instead it has to be online for all the fans who didn't come to the game, or for even the parents of the players who are waiting to find out, well, how did the game go? Wow. So once the game is finished, you post all your pictures.
How long do you have after the game is completed to get it online?
Well, an hour to hour 30 minutes to make sure it's read through, 2 hours max, make sure the editor sees it, and it's ready to go online. Make sure you post on social media anything interesting, exciting that happened during the game. And that's just one sport. So there's sometimes when basketball is going on.
So where do you get all that energy?
Well, the game in itself is exciting.
Right.
So during the office hours, a little bit of nerves, because, you know, to us, it's like we're running an event, we're running a show. Because as you know, in the United States, sports is no joke. When people come to a sporting event, it's extremely serious. So, you know, the energy is a little down during the day, but once you know the timer is going and the game is about to start, your energy has to go up. That even sometimes when the game is over, you're still on this high, because whether the game was an extremely good game, exciting game, a player really, you know, showed out and had an interest in a good game. So the energy is there, and once you truly love sports, I feel like that's what keeps you going.
What's been the most challenging part so far of this job for you? I mean, an incident that stands out, it could be good, bad, or indifferent, that stands out the most so far since you're doing this job?
So what I would say, when the women's basketball team made it to the NCAA tournament, this is the best of the best throughout all the colleges in the U.S. This is women's basketball. Once they made it to the NCAA tournament, I had to do the social media. So I think what was challenging in itself was actually being in that arena, in that environment, because you're not in your home crowd anymore. This is the eyes. It was on ESPN Plus, so you want to make sure the content that you put out, there are so much more people than your typical fans that are watching. So just making sure there's no errors, there's no mistakes, and you put out your best work, because this is the time when it matters most. There's normally like 30 plus games, but not everyone is going to watch all the games throughout the season, just like the NBA. Some people only turn in 40 playoffs, 40 finals.
Correct.
So us as fans, for example, watching a Miami Heat game now, it's fun to us, but those people are under a number of pressure, whether if it's they're running the social media, whether if it's the person who will be writing the story tonight for all those newspapers. It's extremely intense because there's a number of eyes on you.
Social media itself, tell us, based on what you're saying, social media is extremely important in terms of covering sports in the United States. As compared to Trinidad and Tobago, it is not as up to date, obviously.
Yes.
But how critical is it then for you? Because basically what you're saying is you are basically online 24 hours almost.
Yes.
You can't get any rest.
Well, and somewhat you have to keep up, because if you notice, even with players, things happen sometimes, not just in the game. Like if now for social media, we can follow these athletes, outside of the arena, and they are humans just like us. So people
it's a good thing you're not with the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah.
You would have a lot to cover.
Yes.
Not so?
Yes.
I think so.
And just as you were saying, that is the nature of social media. You have to always be alert, because if you're representing, if you're the public relations person for Memphis Grizzlies, for example, and the entire world is talking about that, and you do not know about that, then when the media asks you, what do you have to say about this? You'll be lost.
And just for those who don't know, we're talking about Ja Morant, who plays for the Memphis Grizzlies, who's been in trouble recently for having or appearing on camera twice with a gun, basically, right? So, and he's been suspended because of that. All right, so let's come back to something more positive. So here you are, you're back in Trinidad and Tobago. Tell us about being back in Trinidad and Tobago. What does it mean?
Okay. So being back in Trinidad and Tobago this time is different, because the last time I came was Christmas. Okay. And this was kind of somewhat of the height of basketball season. So even though I was home, I was working from home.
From home.
And it was not as enjoyable, because you have to still keep up with what you're doing. So this time it's different. I'm actually on vacation this time, and it means so much to see the people that I grew up with.
How did you mentioned your dad liked basketball. How do your parents feel, and your other siblings, about what you have done so far in your career?
Well, they're always telling me that they're extremely proud of what I'm doing. They've been to each one of my graduation, and always want to know, like, so what you're covering now, where you're going, how the sports team doing. And I think they're happy to see that I'm doing something that I've been doing all my life. And my dad is really, both of my parents and my brother are really rooting for me, because I always say I want to cover the Olympics, I want to work on ESPN, and they are all pushing me. There are some people that from ever since would always say, well, Terrisa, that's a little too high. But I never believed in
nothing wrong with that.
Never believed in that, and they are always supporting me. Well, what's next? What are you looking forward to? What next job? So how to get there? How are you getting there?
So you're back home in Trinidad and Tobago. Tell us what was the first thing you did when you came back to Trinidad and Tobago?
I think I had dinner with my parents and my family. So it's only one brother. So we had dinner.
What's your favorite food that you miss when you're away?
Cassava and saltfish.
Cassava and saltfish? Wow.
So that might be country food to some people, but...
Yeah, but nothing wrong with that. That's your choice,
Cassava and saltfish. And so my mom cooks a lot, so her cooking...
So do you cook?
Yes.
So when you are in... Well, Florida has a lot of West Indian...
Caribbean,
a lot of West Indian areas around there, so it's easier to get those things. All right, so here's the situation. You're here for a short holiday. How has the experience been in Trinidad and Tobago so far? How have you found it, the country itself, given what you would have probably read about and visually now you're seeing, obviously?
Yes. So the thing about this, I'm original, as I said, I'm from Princeton. So sometimes, obviously looking on from the U.S., it is a little bit heartbreaking to see the crime, the country.
Yeah, of course.
That is hard to take on, but at the same time, being from Princeton, I'm not saying it doesn't happen in Princeton, but we don't experience too much of it. And sometimes I don't want to say that, because they may say, well, Terrisa, you just don't know everything that is going on. So I say particularly, I'm from Craignish Village.
Right,
and I can always say, like, I grew up somewhat of a safe community. But obviously it is sad, because I always say, if we put this energy, whoever is committing a crime or whatnot, if they put this energy into sports or into education, there are so many opportunities, because a lot of the people who are committing crime are extremely intelligent, but they just don't know how to direct that energy into something good, into something that can make their life, their community, and overall the country a much better place. So it is sad, but I always say it starts at home, and it starts in the institutions as young as school to, push sports. I believe if everyone took part in a sport, the discipline that they would learn and the respect they would learn, I don't think the country would be like that. But not everybody plays sports, and obviously we are seeing that even some people who are involved in sports are, not making the best decisions. But I believe it begins at home. I just grew up differently, and we would hope that things become much better, because it's not looking good. Even though I'm not here every day, it's not looking good.
So when you return to Florida, what are your plans in terms of what's next? Exactly the same question I asked. What's next?
Okay, so football and cross country will be starting. So even though we're in June, football really starts in August, but it's a lot of preparation. How good
is the football team?
Very good.
It's good, Florida.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Florida Gulf Coast.
And in terms of the cross country, how good are they as well?
Yes, they are good as well. They're rebuilding because a number of the students graduated, but they are good as well. But we probably need some more Caribbean athletes.
So you mentioned ESPN. What do you need to do, you think, so that ESPN dream can become a reality?
Yeah, so well, for now, being a sports writer, they always say, even though you're going into broadcast or sports reporting, the base has to be, you have to be a good sports writer.
Correct.
So in the meantime, I'm getting the experience to show, well, I was able to cover a Division I, not just women's basketball team making it to the tournament, but I can say I covered Division I sports, and how well I was able to adapt. For example, I had never done men's and women's tennis or beach volleyball, but I was able to accept that challenge. How
do you do? I mean, tell other persons, male and female, how do you adapt to a sport you would never have known before? What do you do? What work do you do?
Well, first work is just researching.
Okay.
One, it may even be as simple as making sure you know all the rules to this particular sport. You might think that that's too basic, but you have to go as far back as that, because when you're watching, the ref might say something and you don't want to be confused, or that may be something that alters or affects the entire result of the match or of the game. So I'm big on research, and I think that goes back to grad school or even before doing my undergrad. So always researching, knowing the rules, watching a few videos, watching my team play, doing research on the year before, how we was able to do and compete, making sure I am aware of all the players to watch as well as the players to watch on the other team. And just obviously the first story that you write is going to be somewhat rough, or the first story is going to take you a while. But that is where practice comes in, researching on your own, writing on your own, and after a while, at the end of the season, it feels like you've been doing it for a while.
All right. How difficult have these two parts been? Being a female and of course being from the Caribbean. How difficult has it been looking at using those two aspects of your life?
Okay, so being a female, when I got this first job as a sports information director in Mississippi, I was the first female to ever be a sports information director, because being a sports information director, firstly, is heavily male. One, because the amount of hours that you put in, you're working in the day, you go to the office, and then there are games at night. So, not saying it's not something that most females would like to do, whether you have a family or whether if you have children, but one, and then it's the stigma that, well, males alone know about sports, or males alone love sports. So obviously sometimes when I walk in a room, whether if it's all the sports information directors are meeting or whatnot.
Majority men.
Majority men, and I have been in rooms like that. They're sometimes, a little bit shocked, but then afterwards, while speaking, they're able to realize she knows what she's doing.
Good.
She loves sports, and I just always carry that grace that there are females who are coming behind me. So I always want to represent myself well, and as I always say, researching. No matter what the sport is, even if it's something new, you just do your research and you'll be able to show up, because you deserve to be there whether you're male or female. If you love something and you have a passion, then you can execute it. So that's been a little challenging. The other thing, being from the Caribbean, I would say is somewhat of my accent. When I originally started in broadcast, a lot of TV stations, I was not able to get the jobs because they would say the accent is still a little too thick.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it thick or fast, or what is it? Not speed?
not speed because I was able to start slowing it down
Right.
once I realized I had to work and people had to understand.
Right.
So it's sometimes the accent, but then some people have told me that Trinidad and Tobago accent is the best accent.
Yeah.
So, and I was able to get a job. It was really more in news, but I've still been able to get jobs. But so I would say that has been the hardest thing, being from the Caribbean. Each person has their own opinion.
I know.
So I would say that, and probably not doing certain sports like baseball. I had to cover baseball.
How was that?
Last year. That was very challenging. Because at first I wasn't so much of a fan, and I would always say cricket better than this.
Of course. We are
Yeah.
the Caribbean, you always say that.
Yeah, so that wasn't challenging because that was completely new. I had always liked beach volleyball, even though I had never wrote the stories.
Okay.
But baseball was something I had never really liked, never really watched. So that was something I would say was challenging, being from the Caribbean, knowing that not only do we not play it, but most people don't watch baseball, but there are people in the Caribbean who follow baseball.
There are people follow all the different,
Yes.
the American football, as you say, NFL.
Exactly.
That's very most popular, even here in Trinidad and Tobago. As you go, Teresa, I want to say well done. We continue to look forward to seeing you on ESPN, seeing you making your name. What would you tell other young ladies in particular who just at what you would have been told that, hey, don't aim so high, just relax, stay in your lane? What do you tell them?
So firstly, no. You have to know it in yourself. Not only are you are capable, firstly, but you can do anything that you want to do. We're living in a great time. There are people who came before us, ladies who became before us that were not able to work. And as of this time, that is not the excuse. So we have to not only take the opportunities, but represent those who came before us who could not do the things that we are doing. Research, and always I would tell them, show up in the room knowing that you deserve it. No matter what someone thinks about you, no matter what someone tells you, because only you are in control of what you can do. Yes, we may have to work harder than others, but so what? At the end of the day, it will be all worth it, and you can say that you did it, and your daughters or any young lady coming after you will look up to you and seeing that you are a great example, that even though you probably face circumstances, you were able to succeed.
Thank you very much, Terrisa. Mark, we wish you all of the best. We're going to take a short break. We wish you all of the best. We continue to look for on ESPN. Miami Heat, well, we'll see. Take a short break. We'll be back.